Welcome back to 50/50. I'm really excited to be here today with Ash McGrath from CEO for Gender Equity. CEOs for Gender Equity. Actually, I've got to admit, my intro session, I mentioned you. We haven't heard this yet. I mentioned you and I mentioned my gratitude for you coming up with the idea that I do a podcast. And I go, I'd really like to thank Ash McGrath from the Centre of Gender Equity.
Maybe that's the next iteration. I don't know. You could be onto something there.
Maybe it is the centre. That makes me feel better about my mistake because at the moment it has to say on the intro, I have to say, in this episode, I say Centre for Gender Equity. It's actually CEOs for Gender Equity.
That's funny. Welcome to the world of podcasts.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Actually, I'm so happy to be here that it's hard for me to articulate what your one comment at my talk saying, if you don't have a podcast, you should. Honestly, Ash, it has been the great expressive joy of my life to start this process.
That's so awesome.
It's been like you won't, even if whatever this thing becomes, as I articulate it, you go, oh, that's so good. You made a difference to you. But I actually can't really overstate I've had this feeling there's something I'm meant to do. There's some way I'm meant to express myself. And when you said that, I was like, oh, is this going to be the start of how I do that? And I come here, we're here at Tailwind Studios with my gorgeous friend Danielle and Grayson, who we've talked about before. And we've got all our boys upstairs. We've got my son Sam, who's 10, and your sons are...
Mason, who's 8, and Maverick, who's 7.
Oh, beautiful.
So who says you can't do the juggle in school holidays, eh?
Right. Now, they are having fun up there, and it's very important we mention that because poor old Grayson has got children literally above our head as he tries to create perfect AV. So if we hear a few plinks or plonks from Sam's games, oh well, we'll be right?
Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. That's perfect. Actually, that reminds me of something you said when we first met in person. So you saw me talk. We hadn't met before. You put your comment, changed my life. Then I go, let's meet in person, right? And I come and meet you. And I say, I could have you as my first guest. And then I made a comment and I said, actually, I'll save you for later when I'm better at it. And you said, cut that out. Don't do that. And I walked away and I thought, that's so interesting. It's something we might talk about today. Vulnerability versus putting oneself down inappropriately, right? It's two different things.
And unjustified.
Yes, and unjustified. So it was really useful. So anyway, I wanted to say really, I can't thank you enough.
Oh, bless you.
And it's very nice to have you here.
Thank you.
So I want to talk to you about CEOs for Gender Equity. I want to talk to you about things before that. But as you know, I'm obsessed with your accent. And are many Australians like me? Do they all enjoy it and talk about it?
Yeah.
It
opens doors, I'm not going to lie.
Oh, why wouldn't it? Because we just go, what is that noise coming out of your mouth?
Oh, bless you. But, like, if I hear myself, like when I hear this podcast, I'm going to be like, oh, no. Like, I feel like it's so cringe.
No.
But
you are wrong.
People generally don't like their own accents. We don't. So.
Well, Australian, I don't know about you, but the Australian accent is very elegant. I think we all find the noise that's coming out of my mouth. When you hear an Australian on telly overseas, it's always like, oh my God, okay. Yeah.
I love it. It's so like easy breezy, whereas I feel mine's like rough.
No, I actually, because I was thinking, of course, about interviewing you, and I did research because this is my first ever interview. Danielle disagrees because she reckons I interview all the time, but this is actually my first ever interview, and I thought, interviewers do research. I'm going to research Ash.
Oh God, what did you find?
Well, nothing much. I didn't do a deep dive. I didn't go on the dark web.
Phew.
But I was we're talking about this accent idea, and I was thinking about, okay, Ash is from Northern Ireland, and we have, when I did my research, we have a similar work history.
Oh, tell me more.
Because before this job, so you've been at CEOs for the last 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
Right? And before that, for numerous years, you had different positions. Am I right in saying in the recruiting world?
Correct, yes.
So I was a recruiter in Glasgow and my area was Belfast.
Stop it.
Really.
That's so cool.
Really.
Did you go there then?
Yeah.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah. And so one of the things I was thinking about with you today, I know you're doing a talk next month. Is it called From the Emerald Isle
to the Land of the Sand?
Yeah, I reckon that's so cool. And it's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today. being a stranger in a strange land, both in Glasgow and then in Belfast, one side of my background is Irish, Southern Irish, if you call it that. Callahan's my surname, of course. The other side's Scottish, German, English. But, of course, when you're not from Ireland, Northern Ireland or Ireland, it's really impactful to go there. It's such a different place than here, right?
100%.
So you were born there?
Yep, born and raised in a little village called Conlig, which is about 20 minutes from Belfast.
Oh, there you go.
Yep, so born and raised there. And yeah, Northern Ireland is quite unique in that it's just like a little bubble and it's like nothing much changes, you know? It's just, it's a little bubble and everyone just is happy as Larry and, you know, follows the same kind of routine and, but, you know, hangs out for our 2 weeks of, you know, sun holiday in Spain to get our
I was going to say, do you go to
D,
Spain?
You know, because it's cheap and cheerful and we're just dying for some sun back there. So, born and raised there and got a bit of a travel bug. I did my honours degree in business management.
Ah, cool.
And I did a sales and marketing like grad program after that, in which I got to go to like a trade show in China.
Oh,
which is so cool. So that kind of like planted a little travel bug in me, and so it was only a few weeks there, but I moved on from that graduate job because I just my heart wasn't really in it. It was in the IT industry, and I just didn't really, totally gel with it. So I then decided to take, much to my dad's disgust, a gap year.
Oh, shocking.
And, Dad's like, what's wrong with you? You've been offered like a good job and good money, and I just can't fathom, in my generation, we got a job, and I'm like, newsflash, I ain't your generation.
That's right.
And there's a big bad world out there to see. But I didn't want to do one of these like fluffy gap years.
Yep.
So I wanted to kind of do something like a bit productive as well. So the gap year consisted of a month backpacking around South Africa with some friends, which was really cool. And then I taught English in China for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So that was a really cool experience, and even further kind of, fed that travel bug in me. And I actually met my ex-husband before I kind of undertook the gap year.
Oh, wow.
And he ended up coming to visit in China. And then so when that was all over, there was just this kind of little urge to just, try somewhere new.
Else?
And so we actually got married. And after we got engaged, just, the conversation started happening to think about moving abroad straight after the marriage. Because marriage is a kind of key turning point, isn't it? So it was like, well, either get married, settle down, have a family, or get married and just take a punt and rent the house out for a year, get a working holiday visa, which you can get overnight for Australia.
Right.
And see how it goes. But actually the turning point to actually give us that nudge to really get serious about moving to Australia was, I'll never forget, it was a rainy, grey Sunday afternoon at my old in-laws.
Yes.
And we were watching TV and this show came on, Palms Abroad, Brits Abroad, right? And it shows you like the lives. You're laughing because
I'm laughing because I know the show, and I'm laughing because my husband does an impersonation of Brits in Spain, where we used to watch and you say, every year, English people start a new life in Spain.
This is it. So just picture this like grey, dreary Sunday afternoon. This show comes on, and my ex-father-in-law, who, isn't a man of too many words, turned around and said to me and my ex-husband, he said, "You two are stupid. What are you doing sitting here? You should be out there."
Oh.
And I was like, well, all right, he doesn't say much at the best of times. So like, this is serious, And so that was actually the prompter for us to consider moving out here.
What a gift. Because that's what I was going to ask you. You're from a small village in Northern Ireland, like you said, its own world. You have an adventure and go to China. You had an adventure prior in South Africa. What do you know what it was in you that had that sense of there's something more than this? It doesn't sound like you were unhappy in Northern Ireland, but it was like, or were you?
Yeah.
Too small?
Yeah, I just felt like I had been given a little taste of what else is out there, and like I suppose it was going from one extreme to the other. So you went from Northern Ireland to South Africa.
Yeah.
Wow, like
Yeah.
raw, beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, the wildlife, like the culture, like amazing. Back to Northern Ireland, then to China, like so extreme,
Yes.
kind of the other way, like just
Yes.
all their history and nuances, and you know, so
Yes.
I felt like I kind of went to the extremes. So then it was
Yes.
like Australia is kind of like almost like a second home, because you know, similar culture, only we've got the lifestyle, we've got the opportunities, we've got the climate.
Yes.
Do you know? So because it was going to be a serious move,
Yes.
like a long-term move, you know, going somewhere which was, you know, not as extreme, but
Yeah.
like a bit more kind of comfortable. But
Yeah, long way away, but lots of cultural similarities. Really.
but no, we'd never been to, and some people think that's mad that like we'd never been to Australia before moving, but it's like, you know, just go for it.
Do you think you have that way of thinking, like, what's the risk really? Like, let's give it a go?
I think that's always been my personality, is just pushing boundaries, like seek forgiveness, not permission.
Yes.
YOLO, all of
Yes.
that. I think that's always been my attitude. And yeah, I just felt like the humdrum of life in Northern Ireland was getting to me.
Yeah.
And I've always also been very ambitious, and
Yes.
you know, a lot of Northern Ireland's like, you know, very public sector, and it's a bit, you know, it lacks sometimes like a bit of innovation in some ways.
Yes,
so,
it sounds like it wasn't a very good cultural match for your personality and your heart, right? So it wasn't that it was a bad place, but it was limiting as to what you felt energetically. That weather thing that you describe, I'm born and bred in Perth, right? And I have never really appreciated it as I should. Actually, for the same reasons that you had in Northern Ireland, I felt it was smaller than me. That's changed actually, because Perth has changed. It's much more dynamic. I remember when we got one of our first lane bars and I was like, everything's going to be okay. I can go into a small door like I could in Melbourne.
yeah.
Things are open past 8.
So did you spend a bit of time in Melbourne then?
Yeah, a little bit. I've lived lots of places, a little bit like yourself, actually a lot like yourself. Was born and bred in Perth, had all the benefits of the climate and things that would have been beautiful for you to come to, but also it had the sense of parochial, small, very, very isolated, not dynamic. You know, I'm 50, so if you think back to the 70s, a Sunday, I can still think of the pain of a Sunday. It was sunny, but it was dead. No one on the street.
Yes.
Nothing happening, you know. That Sunday afternoon, rainy, I lived in Glasgow for 1 year, went to live the second winter and came home for a trip because I was about to start a new job in recruitment, and I thought I'd just go home. I'm a bit worn out. I was on my own. I'd travelled on my own for a couple of years, and I remember coming home, landing at the Perth airport, and in those days they used to have an outdoor bar in the international area because everyone was smokers, right? It's old times. And I remember coming out the door and looking up at the sky, which was blue, and I'd just come from this Glaswegian winter, which, you know, 9 a.m. the sun comes up, 3 p.m. the sun goes down.
That's right.
And I went, what is this place? My hometown. Went down to Cottesloe to visit a friend and went, this is like a toy town. It's so bright. It's so clean. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was like, no wonder people never want to go home from here.
So it took you to be out of that
Yeah.
to appreciate it. And I think that's normal, you know, like, I mean, it's baffling for me that people from Western Australia want to move somewhere else, you know,
Right.
but that's because I've come from somewhere else, and
That's
this is a whole
right.
different experience for me. But I think some of you West Aussies need like a kick up the ass sometimes to realise how lucky you are. But I do agree. I mean, I moved here in 2011, And working in the recruitment industry, it's all like out and about, drinks after work, it's all party.
Yeah.
Well, sure, you go out in the city on like a Tuesday night, it's like tumbleweeds going down the street, right? So I get what you're saying.
Like when people say, do you have kangaroos in the main street? We go sometimes.
Not quite.
Depends on the night.
But gosh, how far we've come. Like now, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's really shifted, and it hasn't been that you came at the right time. Maybe you brought it with you.
Maybe.
The energy came.
Yeah.
But you know that thing you said about Western Australians need to kick up a bum? I completely agree. I now don't believe in karma from life to life because there is so many spoilt, obnoxious people in Perth who don't appreciate what they've got. They can't have got good karma to, they would have been better people. The tiny complaints, I go to the football with my father, West Coast. It's a big topic at the moment, won't bore you with it. Get on the bus. Oh, the bus was 2 minutes late and the whole bus is talking about, I feel like going, slap everybody.
Stop it.
Do you understand what a real problem is?
Yeah.
I talk to, when I'm working with coachees or clients, different people from around the world, and we talk about this very subject like, there is no lifestyle issue, for most people. Now, of course, you're going to have people in this current climate that are in a difficult financial position or life isn't as good. But for your sort of middle band, corporate, working kind of person, I think actually Andy and I have said, my husband have said, every child born in Western Australia should have to go to a developing country where English isn't the main language and spend a period of time to get perspective.
100%. And even, like, I tell everyone this because it's so true, even the weather, take away all the amazing opportunities and lifestyle, even the weather, like, being in Glasgow, like in Northern Ireland, I honestly, minus about maybe 4 to 6 weeks of sunshine, the rest is either rainy, cloudy, right? You can't, you can because you've lived in Glasgow. The impact that has on your everyday life is actually crippling.
Yes.
If that's all you see, it affects your mood, it affects your outlook.
Yes.
And then that all kind of feeds from that. You look outside, it's raining, you don't want to go outside for a walk. Then you get, a bit.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating the difference. So I literally skip out of bed in the morning.
Honestly.
Here, and I'm just and I live in Scarborough, so I just drive down Sackville Terrace, and the boys and I are always like, look at that gorgeous view, how lucky are we, and I just can't believe how lucky I am to live and work and raise my family here.
Right.
This is just mine, the stuff dreams are made of, literally. Yeah.
I was saying to Danielle in one of our previous conversations here, I don't know if the data's real and I've got to look it up still, but I heard that 95% of the world's population will never see the ocean in real life.
Really?
I've got to check the data.
Yeah.
I'll put a note on this podcast and tell the real data.
Yeah.
But I thought it could be true. If you think where the majority of the population of the world is inland China, inland India, it could actually be true.
Yeah.
95% will never see, and we can see it every day.
I know, it's mad. And one of my team's actually from Slovakia. So yeah, she's she said the same thing. It's in you just don't grow up with the, no concept of, and even it flows on to things you don't even get to taste seafood and it's mad.
It's like heaven. It is like heaven.
We're so lucky.
I know.
Never mind all the opportunities.
But doesn't it show human nature? The fact we're having this conversation and I'm cursing to people on the bus, it shows human nature. If you don't have the perspective or you've got a certain level of things satisfied, it'll be natural to not appreciate. It's a tragedy of being a human, isn't it? That you don't actually appreciate that cliche. You don't appreciate it till it's gone, or you can't appreciate it without the other perspective.
100%. That's why I'm just trying to keep it real. And, if anyone tries to whinge to me about something about Western Australia, I'm like, stop.
That's awesome.
Stop it.
That's awesome. One of the things that you said, so we have this similar background work-wise and also adventure-wise, but I feel like we're different in terms of our level of confidence to do it. So when you said, right, I'm off to South Africa or China or, God damn it, Australia, let's go. Good job, father-in-law. Geez, he was like you for me with the podcast, right? When he said, what are you guys doing? That was a pivotal moment.
Pivotal. I'll never forget that moment.
Thank you, Bob, or whatever his name is. Love you. Whatever else you were, you gave us this great opportunity.
That's right.
But I always say the podcast is called 50-50 because I always feel 51% something, 49% the other. So I'm 51% confident but 49% not, or I'm 51% kind and 49% a bitch. There's a meme. Have you seen the meme? I want this on my gravestone. I've literally told my husband it's a meme that says, always be kind. You never know what someone's going through. Nice turn signal, fuckface. That is me. You don't need to say anything else.
I can't believe that from you.
Oh, I must look so much more innocent than I am. And I'm always trying to admit it. I'm always saying to people, oh, no, let's bring Sam in, for a guest interview.
Funny.
I have this other vicious kind of side. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. What I wanted to say to you about the 51-49, how do you find that for yourself? Do you find that get up and go? Because I can feel it when I talk to you, the energy, the passion, and I feel the confidence. So do you feel like you've always been like that? You've developed it? What were you like as a little kid? Were you a little chutzpah little kid? Did your parents help you get and keep confident?
I was a classic second child syndrome,
Second of how many?
Just 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so just, so I've always been confident, always been, my nature. I mean, if I compare it to my brother, for example, he definitely wouldn't be as kind of outgoing or as confident. So that was kind of natural.
Yes.
And then that was always fostered, growing up as well. But I think, where I've always tended to, my approach to life or jobs or relationships, whatever, has always just been like, just YOLO, just get stuck in, throw yourself in the deep end, see how it goes. Doesn't work out, don't worry about it,
How
So
nice.
that has kind of been quite inner to me. And then you talk about like the China experience, and now don't get me wrong, that first night whenever I arrived, where I was actually teaching in the city, Yangzhou.
Wow.
So the school owner had, and a few of the team had met me and, got me donuts and blankets, and we found an apartment, and it was all good. And the thing was, with that experience, I had never taught before.
Right.
All you had to do was have a degree.
Okay.
So that was grand.
Awesome.
But I thought, well, okay, so these folks know I haven't taught before, so I'm sure they'll just kind of tell me what to do, whatever. Anyway, so that first night, they helped me, got Maduna, got this cupboard stocked a bit, and then they said, okay, here's your timetable. You've got 25 one-hour classes a week, and we'll see you Tuesday. And they left, and I cried.
Ah, yes.
I was just flabbergasted at I was expecting to be just kind of given lesson plans or whatever, but after I cried, dried my tears, you go into solution mode. Okay, research, Google, free lesson plans teaching English in China, right? Just got it sorted. But my point is, I've always just... And then I get more, I'm like, I've thrived in teaching English in China for 6 months. I had never taught English before. I'd never been to China before.
Yeah.
If I can do that, I can do anything.
Yeah, how cool.
So it's almost like you need that initial confidence or a bit risk taken to put yourself in the position where you have to just get on with it.
Yes.
And then I've gained more confidence from doing that.
Yes.
Even a prime example, the role I'm in now.
Yes.
The amount of confidence that I've gained. I'm not sure if we're going to cover it in a later question, but to set the scene on that, I might just share with you how I kind of got into this position. My previous CEO, at the recruitment organisation, Purcell Kelly, which is part of the programme staffing business. That's where I spent my career since I moved to Australia in 2011.
Yes.
So I was there almost 11 years. And about 4 years ago, I started on my PhD journey.
So the PhD precluded? Preempted? Grayson would tell me, but I'm not allowed to look at him. It was before
Correct.
you started at CEOs for Gender
Geez,
Equity.
we're a couple of smart
Honestly,
cookies, aren't we?
We can just keep rolling.
Yeah. So that's right.
So that started first.
That started first. So let me just go back a little bit further to
Yes.
give context for that.
Yes.
So with the PhD, working in recruitment, working in a sales role, going and meeting with Western Australian leaders, HR directors, hey, how can we support you? Where are the gaps in your talent strategy? I noticed there was this recurring theme. And this is going back probably about 6 years ago. And these leaders would say to me, oh, well, Ash, we really want to hire more women, but we don't know how. Don't know where to start. We tried this and it didn't work. So about 6 years ago, there was a recurring theme in those conversations. So that started to plant the seed. About that time, my marriage, not long after moving to Australia, started to kind of go to shit. So, and then it kind of, it all came to a head, really. And yeah, we separated about 6 years ago.
Okay.
And so with that separation, I had this mental space, this physical energy, this mental energy.
Oh, wow.
Because that was just a bit of a weight on me for so long.
Yes.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to do something because I've got all this, mental, physical energy. And a random conversation with friends who work in education revealed that if you've got an honours degree, you can bypass your MBA and go straight for your PhD in Australia.
Oh,
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah. And also, not many people know that PhDs are fully funded. So
I didn't know that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're fully funded by the Australian Research Council.
Oh, wow.
So that all started kind of looking into that. With a PhD, it's all about meeting a research gap.
Yes.
And so when I looked at, I recalled all these conversations. We want to hire more women. Don't know how, don't know where to start. So I looked at, what's out there?
Yes.
And what I found was a lot of the why, so a lot of the business case, this is the benefits of gender diversity, great. And some of the what, so here's like a, put a gender equity target in place, look at, that's the what, but what was missing was the why. So then I landed on the PhD a few years later. So I actually got it all sorted, got it all signed off. It was at that time that my old company merged with Program. So I had a new CEO. So I asked for some FaceTime with this CEO. He's the head of like one of the biggest staffing solution companies in Australia. I'm going to feel this out with him. And so he was like, oh, this is brilliant. This is just what we need. This is so practical. And I was like, oh, that's great. Thanks so much. And he said, I'm actually on the board of this company called CEOs for Gender Equity.
Oh, wow.
Let me introduce you to the executive officer. It's like, oh, great. So he did that. And I met my predecessor and we built up a bit of a relationship over a few years. So 2 years ago when this position became available, I knew my predecessor. I knew she was leaving. I had a coffee with her. I said, where are you going? In my head, I was like, far out. That's like my dream. Hello, my dream job, leading CEOs for gender equity. My PhD, my passion.
Yes.
But I was like, I'm not ready for that. There's no way I could speak to a room of CEOs.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so I had a coffee with my predecessor and I didn't even ask.
Yeah, wow.
Right? Now this is coming from me who's always been very naturally confident but I fell into the trap. Right? So in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's been my dream job. But I was like, oh, I'll wait to get to finish my PhD, then I'll have more credibility and.
Yeah.
So I just got on with my day job. And one day I was in the office and I was actually having a chat with my boss at his desk. And the CEO came up and said to my boss, can I have a word with you? And we're going to come and speak to you in a minute, Ashley. And I was like, oh, Jesus, what have I done?
Yeah.
And my boss came back and said, Nick is sponsoring you for that job.
Oh.
And
that
was it. Like, I was...
What did you feel in that moment?
It gives me goosebumps thinking about it.
Too.
I was blown away, first of all. Then I was like so stoked. And then I was annoyed at myself for not even asking the question, you know?
right.
So there was a bit of a process, because I literally got a notebook out and I went, transferable skills. Okay, so what does this role involve? And then I was like, Ashley, you idiot. Of course you've got all these transferable skills. Yeah, you haven't finished your PhD, but you got plenty of knowledge there.
Yes.
So then I was annoyed at myself. But the thing was, originally, he said, look, it's going to be a competitive process. There'll be other candidates, but I'm kind of backing you in.
Wow.
Well, all he had to do was sponsor me.
Yes.
And this job is mine.
Oh, wow.
That, like, he just lit the fire in the belly.
Oh, wow.
And the rest sorted itself out. There didn't end up being any more interviews.
No, I was going to say.
Pitched to the board, got the job.
Got the job.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. It's like you got 2 bites at the cherry. Oh, that's what we were going to call today, popping the cherry.
Yeah.
And I was saying it's good for your lipstick as well, because it's our first interview.
Thank you.
But yeah, that's fascinating to me. There's a couple of things that I want to mention coming out of that. One is when you said about how once you've taken one risk, you get practiced, so it's easier. So there's a very famous training model that I use a lot about the circles of comfort, learning and terror, right? And when you're in your comfort zone, you are comfortable, like the term. When you're learning, you're slightly uncomfortable. And when you're terrorised, that's words there for a reason. So that one moment of crying in China, you went right out to the, I'm not comfortable. Sorry, Grayson, I just knocked the mic. I'm a very good girl, just so you know, so I don't like making mistakes. But then, you know, your circle of comfort gets better, right? Gets bigger. You go to South Africa, it gets bigger. And then, of course, you come to Australia, it gets bigger. When that moment came when you thought, oh, no, that job is a bit beyond me, isn't that interesting that you got the second chance? I get why you're annoyed at yourself because of who you are, but I had the same thing happen with a role where I had exactly the same process. I'm not ready for that role. I decided not to take it, and then I was devastated. I really thought, oh, my God, I've stuffed this up. It was the way of me starting into my training career. 4 to 6 weeks later, another person resigned and I got a second chance. Wow. I wonder how it works.
I believe in fate.
Yes.
And I believe in karma.
Right.
Those two things are like my guiding stars in life.
Do you believe in karma as in if you do good in this life, you get good in this life?
100%.
I think I am starting to believe in that as well, because even though I've got my nice turn signal fuckface part of myself, I really try to be good and generous and brave and all. And I notice as life goes on and I try and have a good impact in the world, the more I try and have a good impact and are successful in that, I feel like more and more good stuff comes back to me.
It's so true. I did this course last year from the Proctor Gallagher Institute, and it's all about mindset, and it talks to exactly that, and it talks to the terror barrier it's called like the terror barrier in that.
There you go.
And it's about just realizing that it feels, you know, your body's wired to have certain reactions whenever there's a situation which is totally new, like you can't fathom, your body's not used to, you know, it doesn't recognize it. So it's just recognizing that that's okay, that this is the terror barrier happening. Push through it.
You
know, but
push through it. There's this moment, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about it, and I've realized more and more. I'm doing a talk, we're at the same thing, we're at Women in Mining end of July. What do you remember the name of the panel that you're on? I know you do a lot, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you're on a panel.
Yes, I am moderating a panel.
That's right, you are. You're moderating a panel, and I'm not sure if it's the same day or not, I'm doing a talk on knowing your why and following through. When I was looking at the following through part, I always think about all the different things I've learned. So I think, and how I introduced this podcast was, I think my job is to say how I've found things hard and what I've learned and how I now can use the wisdom of the world, right? So I listen to people and then I can share it in a way, and because this is, of course, just myself and it could be wrong, but I think because I share it from a place of true humility, because I can't be anything but humble because I make all these mistakes, it lets people hear it at their level, not like, hi, Ash, let me help you.
Yeah.
Can I, maybe one day you'll be like me. I don't do
Yeah.
that because I'm not that, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, that was long way of saying, in the follow through part, Arnold Schwarzenegger says there's this moment where you have a choice to make, and it's, am I going to go for a run, or am I going to take this job, or I'm going to eat healthy? It's actually only a few seconds, but we make a choice in that moment that changes our life, right? One of the things I'm going to say in my talk is, he says, come with me if you want to live, in Terminator. And I actually thought that moment is, come with me if you want to live, because I can think of all the times I've sat back down in bed and not gone for the run, or eaten one piece of cake and go, well, it's over now, can just keep going.
Yeah.
Instead of that painful moment of, can I push through this? And when you do, there's a saying you may have heard, when it's behind you, it's a tiger, and when it's in front of you, it's a kitten.
No, I haven't heard that.
That's right? Cool. So you go, oh, I couldn't possibly blah, 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 whatever it might be. And then actually you take the step and you go,
Yeah.
right?
See, I am like a bit of a freak of nature, right?
Yeah.
In that I just, you know, you talk about like 50-50. I am just 100%. I
reckon you are.
I don't, you know, my brain is very logic, right? And it's like, if I don't just seize every day, seize life, be an awesome human, there's no, like, say if I just wallow about something bad happening, I just wallow about it.
Yeah.
My logical brain says, what good is that doing? Nothing. So no matter what happened, I've had like some shit things happen in my life.
Yes.
But I'm always, you will never hear me dwell, whinge. I don't have it in me.
Yeah, I don't think you have it in you.
People are bamboozled by it. I've even had people question, like, not believing that I'm sincere because they just can't believe how extreme it is. But it's
you
just
said
how I'm
it's
wired.
always been there. It's always been there.
Yeah.
Like from a kid, right?
Yeah.
Like it sounds like it's so funny when you describe how one of the things that came up for me when you were saying what you're naturally like, it made me feel really proud of myself. And I'll tell you why. That experience that you had, I had it as a little kid, right? When I was little, I was who I am. And who I am is big and creative and clever and brave, right? I'm a big personality. But then enough happened where it taught me don't do that got squashed for a really long time, right? And as I make choices now, especially when I was younger, I went overseas by myself. I did these things by myself. It was terrifying for me. And when I was in Glasgow, I had literally had clinical anxiety and depression, but I kept going. Wow. So I've had one part of me that's like brave and big and I'm not going to let this beat me. And the other part has really been so hard to manage. So I feel like I really feel really happy for you, and I think it means the impact you can have is so wonderful because you're not having to put energy into, like you said, a sort of poor me or. But I probably shouldn't share this, but it's true. I went, oh, you're making me feel really proud of me because I'm totally shit compared with you, and I'm still doing stuff like, you know what I mean?
Oh, bless you.
Yeah,
but it's, you know, everyone's got their own. Like, this is a lot of reflection has kind of gone into this, so it's kind of like how I am naturally. But then I've had full on experiences happen, and it's from a lot of reflection that I'm just in, especially now, like in a really, really good place. So whilst I've always had this positive, can do, glass half full to the absolute extreme, like, you know, I can't function any other way, right?
It's so cool.
My husband's like, we were laughing like only a few nights ago because something came up on the TV about like a pessimist and optimist, and and we were just laughing because he's like a bit of a pessimist and I'm like the gold star of optimism. We were just laughing,
and it's why you got married, no doubt, right?
Yeah,
because you have the yin yang.
But it's funny, but you know, it hasn't always been. Whilst that's always been my outlook,
yes,
almost, I would say with my divorce,
yes,
it actually, having that outlook actually prolonged that more than it should.
I was going to
So
ask
it's
you that. I was
not
going to ask,
all-
what was it that had you stay when you could? It's the feeling I had is like a cloche on a meal, right? When you left Northern Ireland, the energy for you, the cloche came off, and you could express
What's a
yourself.
cloche?
Oh, you know that silver thing on a fancy meal, like if they have a
Oh,
waiter with white
yeah.
gloves,
Yeah.
and they take that's called a coloche.
Oh.
I think I can't look at Grace, and I think Danielle's nodding at me. And for me, it felt like if you're on the plate, right?
Yeah.
And you're in Northern Ireland, and then you go, hang on, I'm bigger than this, and you take it off, right? And you go,
I like
Or
that.
like another one, extend the metaphor. You know when there's a sexy dessert and there's smoke under the glass version of that, and they go like that and go, they put it near your nose. So and that's you going, phew. So when you left your first marriage, the feeling I had was that you went,
Very much.
so was it your – because I was like, well, what had you stay and only share what you're comfortable with? But are you saying because you're an optimist, because I can make this work, you worked for longer?
Absolutely. Way longer than I should.
Got it.
Way longer. So
Got it.
that's my natural way of being. But
Yes.
sometimes it is a detriment because
Yes.
I should have left that marriage a long time ago. But like I said, I believe in fate. So
Yes.
whilst it kind of drained me,
Yes.
I believe that the timing, just it all worked out the way it was meant to. And there was a collage. There was a collage moment for me
Yes.
in that, which was a very good friend of mine from Liverpool. Was visiting in the house. So I moved here. I got married in 2011.
Okay.
Separated about 6 years ago. So
Okay.
married for about 7 years.
Okay.
But pretty much as soon as we moved to Australia, the cracks started to show, and then it just got gradually worse and worse and worse and worse and worse.
Right.
And but the issues with my ex kind of involved like some of my friends and the partners of my friends.
Oh.
So in order to kind of try and like protect that, and it was all a bit awkward and all a bit messy,
I was gonna say
actually
messy.
kept a lot to myself
Right.
about what was really going on. And again, hindsight's a great thing. I'm really annoyed with myself for doing that.
Yeah.
So now, literally, I had girlfriends at my house on Tuesday night, and I'm like, how's your marriage? How's your marriage? How's your marriage?
Yeah, wow.
We don't talk about this
Yes,
enough. I kind
yes.
of wish if people had have asked that I would have opened up a wee bit more. So
Yes.
anyway, side topic, that's something I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, right. We can go
But-
back to it too.
But what happened was my friend, she was one of the ones kind of like an independent friend. So she
Okay.
kind of knew a lot more of what was going on. She came and saw the household dynamics and basically I'm running after the kids, hostess with the mostess. He's just being a nightmare. And just before she left, I knew people from Liverpool, they are
I was going to say they're straight,
brutal,
right?
right?
Straight.
And she pulled me to the side at the front door as she was leaving.
Yeah.
And she said to me, "You've lost your sparkle."
Oh.
Goosebumps. Because that was my coloche moment. So it's not like the coloche was that this is from that hurt me.
Yeah, I was
that
gonna say.
hurt me because I pride myself
I was going to
in
say that's who you
being
are.
Miss Positive, Polite, Happy-Go-Larry.
Yeah.
That really cut me, that comment.
Yeah.
And initially I was like, offended and defensive and like, like he's doing this and he's doing that and he's trying.
Yeah.
But I remember the moment I was in the shower that night and I was just thinking about, and I was like, she's bloody right.
God damn
She's
it.
bloody right. And I was like, if this is getting to the stage where it's starting to affect me as a
Yes,
person and
yes.
everything I pride myself on, this is not okay.
No.
So that was my turning point. And it was at that point I got comfortable with it being over and started to get my ducks in a row.
Yeah.
And so, that was, and then you have the whole like hot mess of a separation,
Yes.
divorce. I had the Mason and Maverick were 1 and 2.
I was going to say little kids.
I was working part-time. Like that was just a lot of things to sort out.
Yeah.
But with that being done, it's kind of been part of the journey, which is now like I feel like the good parts of me are kind of on steroids now because like that's
Yeah.
like long gone, all sorted. The boys are great. love and study, career's going great. My new husband and stepdaughter are just magical.
Oh, wow.
And the impact of having, honestly, my husband is the polar opposite
Yes.
of what my previous husband was.
Yes.
And I can't it's a bit like from Northern Ireland to Australia. I've never actually reflected on this until this very moment. The impact of having someone like that as your partner versus everything in my life has gone on steroids since I met Troy and have the support of him and my wonderful stepdaughter Caitlin as well.
It's wonderful.
And it's just mad, I can't believe my life.
Yes.
And I think back to that moment in the shower when I was just low, and just thinking, this is a fucking mess. I've got so much ahead of me.
Oh, yeah.
To get all this sorted. But now it pales in insignificance now compared to what I've got.
I know.
It's just mad.
Well, as you talk, it makes me feel like crying. I'm really touched by what's happened as you describe that. I can relate and I can really feel that change from being weighted. Have you ever been under a weighted blanket? The weighted blankets people have?
And that's it.
Right? And that feeling of when you were being the hostess with the most, you got these little children, right? No joke. This husband not doing a great job. You're running around smiling, no doubt, looking good, internally struggling, right? What do they say? Surviving, not thriving, right?
That was it.
And then your friend, who of course you have to thank, goes, what's going on here, Miss Sparkleless?
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, worst insult ever.
Yeah. Cutting.
Did part of you want to say F you? Like
a little bit. I was definitely taken back. And it was so personal because I am like Miss Sparkle. Right?
It was like,
and I was like, you've lost it. I was like,
no.
I was like, ooh, like.
You might be from Liverpool, lady, but that was too low.
Yeah, but it's what I needed.
It was exactly what you needed.
And
you would have got there eventually no matter what.
I would have. I was starting to feel it. And to be honest, it wasn't just the physical load, like the financial load, like the mental load. He actually had the cheek to be like doing all that, actually like putting me down and all this other shit. So it wasn't as if just trying to get by with someone who's just not a great. He was actually trying. Now I even back then, like I could see exactly what he was trying to do, and wasn't having a bar of it. Yeah. But it was almost an extra insult that like, how dare you like just honestly be such a shit husband and also try and put me down and drag me down and into the bargain. Like, how fucking dare you?
Yeah, right. Like, don't bring me down to try and match you, buddy.
Yeah.
That's not who I am.
Yeah, but the good thing is, this is the glass half full, is I can confidently say to Mason and Maverick that when they're old enough and if they have questions about it, that I tried my absolute best.
Yes.
Really did. And like the irony is when we separated that he claimed to be like so much happier as well. Oh. And so like it's a little bit of a dig for me because I'm like, I felt like I was like, even through all the shit, I felt like I was like the most awesome wife in the world. Yeah. And so it almost like it took me a wee while to like accept that because it was almost like another kick in the teeth. Like,
you feel better?
Yeah.
You should be devastated.
Yeah. But it's it's fascinating because so and I like to talk about that because I just don't feel like we talk about relationship issues and divorce and separation, whatever, as much as we need to. But I don't mind admitting that was really hard to swallow after what I felt like. I felt like I carried the family, the relationship for years. So it was, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I know.
He said he's happier.
I know, but you know why when I hear that one thing, he could have been bullshitting, right? He might not have been happier. But if he was actually happier, the reason that I think that could be true is people know. He would have known that he wasn't a good match for you, or he wasn't being able to be the husband you needed, and he would have felt that. And I suspect that's I'm not a psychologist, I'm totally making stuff up, but it feels like potentially that's where the belittling would have come in as well, because he needed to try and drag you back because you're going to fly off, obviously. He couldn't keep up. He probably didn't have it in him. I always say, it's part of my gravestone. One part's abusing people and the other part is be kind. You never know what someone's going through.
Yeah.
I really do think people are doing their best even when their best is shit. It doesn't mean you have to hang out with them, but you just go, okay, that's your best. Like that fellow, that was his best, not for you. You're delighted to have moved on. I'm delighted for you.
Yeah.
I think you also talked about we don't talk about marriage enough, and I think one of the reasons for me personally, if I think of people in my life, if I was to challenge some people around their marriage, I think a lot is not said because people don't want to leave.
Yeah.
I think they don't want to leave.
Yeah.
And actually, if you really got into the juice of what home life is like for a lot of people, I think there's economic considerations,
100%.
child considerations, security considerations,
Yeah.
how they look. Like one of the things when I do the why talk, I'm going to talk about, the famous and very old Maslow's hierarchy.
Yes.
Physiological, safety, secure, right?
Food.
Yeah. We've got to eat first, but once we've got the food, we're worried about have we got social connection, right? And I was looking at this triangle and I was thinking, do I use this really old model? I mean, it's still logical, but I was like, it's pretty old. And then I started looking at it deeper and I looked at the level. One level is esteem and the next level is self-actualisation. And I thought, you know what? Esteem battles with self-actualisation because for you to feel good, you'd done everything you could and you realised, I've got to go. That was your self-actualisation, but your esteem for a lot of women, I think, to be seen as having a successful marriage, whether that's true or not, staying with the fellow, not having the stigma of separation. For a lot of people, I think the esteem of their community, and depending on what the rest of the people in their community are doing, it wins out over self-actualisation. That most men are living lives of quiet desperation.
What? I haven't heard
It's
that.
a famous saying by I don't know who. I'll add it to the notes of this.
Okay.
Most men are living lives of quiet desperation. And I was watching this reality show on the plane last night coming back from site, and I love crappy reality shows where I get to watch people's beautiful clothes and psychoanalyse why they're on the show. Fascinating.
Numb your brain.
Honestly, it's not even numbing for me. I go, who are you and what made you buy those heels and live this life, right? Anyway, this one is a New York real estate show, and the fellow that's leading it, he introduces himself. I've watched him for years on different real estate shows because you also get to see the houses.
Right.
A bit like our lovely house we're in today. Although, not to put Danielle's house down, we did last night look at a $250 million apartment in New York. So.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, we were literally in a shack here, but actually it's not. My house is literally a shack up in the hills, so yeah. Anyway, he says at the beginning of the intro, he says, my grandfather, when I was 10, drove me past a graveyard and said, do you know who's in there? Actors, painters, comedians, authors, but most of them never did it because most people in there, their lives were unfulfilled.
Oh, I like that.
And he said, I was 10, fancy saying that to a 10-year-old, and he said, and it changed my life because I decided I'm not going to have an ordinary life.
Wow. That's amazing.
So when you talk about what you've done and the change of that and having the joy of this husband and this daughter, that drive to self-actualise for you, because it is who you are, esteem is also there, your self-esteem, right, which is more powerful for you than I'll just better try and look good to everyone else, right? So it helped you win out. I have the same thing but weaker than you, but it still tips me over the edge where I go, right, I'm going to do it. I think about, when you talk about fate, you've got these 2 children, right? And you would never have had those children without that fellow.
That's it.
So
yeah,
that's right.
I
Of
have no
anything
regrets.
else, right?
Yeah,
of anything else.
That's right.
But I mean, that's a bit of a cliche to say that, but it's actually true. These beloved children of yours were meant to come from that fellow. And you said, I got mad with myself because I should have done it sooner. 2 things. One, I had that exact experience myself, but also I was taught something once that I loved, and it was like, you couldn't have made a different decision then than you did. Hindsight, it's not fair to look back with the wisdom of hindsight and tell yourself off for something you didn't know then but you know now.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
You're the wrong
so
judge now to go, why didn't you blah, blah, blah?
And that's right. And this is, a lot of processing, a lot of reflection.
Right.
Now saying this, and because of I know what my life is like now.
Yeah.
But like I said, fate and karma, I wish my ex-husband, I wish him all the best.
Yes.
Don't no regrets.
Yes.
Like everything has played out the way it was meant to.
Yes.
So I think that's a big thing. But I'm really, what you're saying is, some people don't want to leave, right?
And they do, but they don't.
Yeah, and that may be the case, but I guess my point is we're not even talking about it enough to kind of, for those people to kind of open up and have conversations. Like, as an example, so when I'm divorced now, so separated, whatever, maybe I'm separated 7 years, divorced 6 years, or 6 and 5.
Yeah.
When I announced that I was separating from my ex-husband, well, didn't they all come out of the woodwork? I had friends, colleagues, clients start opening up because I was talking about it and being really open and frank as I am.
Yes.
I've coached so many people through divorces over the years. You have no idea.
Wow.
I've sent my divorce paperwork off to people. Like,
you gave them the access.
So it's almost like we're waiting for, people, like society's waiting for people to be frank and be real about it.
Yes.
And all those people are shining now.
Right.
All of them. So in some scenarios, maybe marriages, unsteady marriages can be worked through. And my point is we need to at least have a conversation.
Yes.
And we're not.
Yes.
And even through asking that question of some of my dearest and best friends, I've found out things that wouldn't have otherwise been spoken about.
Yes.
So,
but you would have provided as well. See, if someone if someone different from you had a separation and divorce and hadn't approached it like you've actually been able to provide a light for people because of your strength and expression. So people would have literally said to themselves after watching you, Ash did it. Ash did it.
Yeah.
If Ash can do it, and look at how wonderful she is, and she could help me. And Ash is not a loser; she's the opposite. So I can. So I think you sort of on the path you were on help people join you, because why wouldn't they want to join you? That's really cool, right?
I'm a case study.
Happy case study.
Yeah.
Happy case study.
So that's what I'm passionate about. At least trying to drive this message, because we're all and. Some of the friends and clients and who came to me, you would never know.
Never.
You would never know. You would see their social media and you would think they have the most beautiful, amazing, and this is what pisses me off.
And they wear a lot of white when they're having that amazing life. There is a thing at which I believe, because I've watched it, the more people post on social media about how wonderful their marriage is, likely the less wonderful the marriage is. Now, that is not scientific data. It's literally just something I heard.
Yeah.
But within my own life and own social circle, when people have had the toughest times in their marriage, the most social media. But your passion is my passion. All it is a slightly, it's a part of it, right? So that exact thing you said, why does this podcast 50-50 exist? Why do I talk like I do when I speak or train or coach? It's because I fucking hate the bullshit we're all contained within. right? No one's allowed to say they're scared. No one's allowed to say their marriage sucks. No one's allowed to say they're frightened of death. Like, we all have to look at LinkedIn as a feed, you know? It's like, oh, I'm awesome, I went to this thing. It's so boring. It's like when there's a conversation, like when you put something on, there's a conversation, right? When Peter Slocum puts something on, there's a conversation. It's juice. It's beautiful. It's, you know, it's honest. But I want people to feel free. And as I share in my introduction, which I'll share with you haven't heard it yet, I actually realised the reason that I've been banging on so much about authenticity is because I wasn't comfortable to be authentic. So I was the most anxious about what people would think. I would post the least because I knew I didn't want to lie, but I also wasn't willing to be vulnerable. So, you know, what you're talking about and what I'm talking about is a real change.
Yeah.
And vulnerability takes such courage, particularly when people are in certain social or corporate or cultural environments. It is not the agreement to be vulnerable. 100%. The agreement is, I'm all right, Jack.
100%. And what I love, you know, what I inherited already at CEOs for Gender Equity is this, you know, we do coach our members, you know, at our CEO summits 3 times a year when we bring all our members together, and in each of our members commits to hosting a roundtable of their like non-members, like their peers, CEOs of their suppliers, customers, people they went to school with, whatever, and we always coach them to be really vulnerable.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and some people, like, everyone makes an effort with it, absolutely.
Yes.
And by doing so, the conversations that we're able to have are just a game changer.
Yes.
You know, and because especially around the topic of gender equity, which can be quite like emotive and you know, personal.
Yes.
By encouraging our members, and I always, you know, start our summits or roundtables by saying, I'm doing a PhD in this and I don't have all the answers.
Yeah, right.
This is a safe space, it's Chatham House rules. Let's just keep it real today.
Can you say more about Chatham House rules? We're going to put the CEOs for Gender Equity video at the start of this podcast, and I think in that you referenced Chatham House rules.
Yeah.
So what I made up was, it means that it's a safe space. What does it mean? Is that what it means?
Yeah, so Chatham House rule means that you can't, you know, with our roundtables, whatever gets discussed in there, you can't kind of you know, you can talk broadly about the ideas and everything, but you can't like name names and like, you know, people will say, oh, well, my board's a nightmare with this and I'm struggling with this and this person in my business is doing this. So you can talk broadly about, the themes and the ideas, but we don't name names.
Got it. So when people leave, they've got a sense of safety from the confidentiality of it's not going to go back into their environment.
And we've never had an issue of people breaking that, you know, and even whenever I share stories and examples, it's always, you know, if someone asked me, oh, who was that? I was like, Chatham House rule. Sorry, I can't tell you. This is the broad story, because that does set a level of confidence. And so like in these roundtables, like it's just magic. It's one of my favorite parts of the job, especially because our roundtables are for non-members. So for some of them, it's the first time they're really talking about this, like with their peers. And like I've had people cry. I've had people be like, oh shit, I thought I was all good for this, but I've got so much and that's the kind of, you know, emotional kind of change and aha moment that we're, you know, helping to drive. And it's just so, you know, it just fills my cup so much and gives me so much hope that these conversations are just the beginning for these CEOs, and then it's how we can kind of support them after that.
Yeah, right. And because it comes from a real place where they're willing to be vulnerable, and you set that, you know, you're setting the culture of this is, you can be vulnerable, real, you're safe, that's the expectation. So that's what then occurs. That's where all the magic happens, right?
Exactly.
Because when that vulnerability it creates a space. There's a fellow, very famous fellow in Australia, Stephen Biddulph, I think he pronounced his name, Raising Boys. He is, I believe, 71 now, and he's just started sharing on Facebook about different things he's doing, and he's about to launch a new book. And he writes these posts with absolute authenticity and vulnerability. And he's only written 2 or 3, and he wrote in his last one, I've been a bit slow to write my next post because I'm about to launch this book. It's going to be a huge press tour. I'm not that young anymore. I'm worried about taking it all on. And he continues to talk through it. And as I read the post, I felt this, I think it'll be what you're feeling at the round tables and what you're creating. You feel this sense, a little bit like we've been talking about with the lid coming off, you feel this sense of space and ease and comfort and release, right? Like, so when a lot of people commented on his post and said, you know, be vulnerable, be truthful, we love you. I don't have a background with him like people do over years of using his book, even though I'm raising a boy. And I commented and said it's hard to articulate the difference your truth makes to the freedom it gives me to read it. Please continue if you want to, because I thought, don't want to boss the fellow around. And he wrote back, which I'm always thrilled when a famous person, and he wrote, he said, I will continue to try and share useful things, and your words have certainly encouraged me to do so.
Wow.
And I was like, yes, because
I
wanted him to know who I was for my ego.
Love it.
You replied to me, right?
Who doesn't?
And the other part was, good. He felt what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Like, keep going, man. And so, but, I shared in the introduction, I find it extremely easy to be vulnerable and share my foibles and all the rest when I'm with you here or when I'm speaking on a stage with 300 people watching me. But I'll have other things that will limit that. I'll have other experiences, times when I'm with other people that I don't have the confidence to just be the weird me, right?
Right. But that's all right, isn't it?
Yeah. It kind of has to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Do you feel like the same person wherever you are and whatever you're doing and whoever you're with?
Yep.
There you go.
Yep. Again, probably with this role, not initially. I definitely still felt like a little bit, and I think back to some of the first summits and roundtables that I ran, and I'm like, oh, but at the time, it was the best that
Absolutely.
I could with, the first time of everything, of course.
Yes.
But it just as every, all the experiences and being thrown in with the deep end, which I've got with this job, I just learned from every single thing, and I kind of just feel like a little bit unstoppable now. And
I think you are unstoppable.
I just love it.
Yeah.
And it's it's empowering to feel like that, and it's because I've just got good feedback, and so it all kind of adds up, pushing yourself into these really uncomfortable initially situations, and when you come out and you're like, bloody ace that.
Yeah, that's right.
And
because
so
it's aligned as well, right? So the reason that it's working is because things have come together in such a way, and your extensive experience prior to this has come together in a way where you can pursue what is in your heart and your confidence and your sparkle and all of those things that are about you. You're not trying to work alongside it. It is it, right? So you feel the energy. That's why I'm so grateful to you about this, because of course we don't know what this podcast might be, but the very process of starting it, I feel the feeling of if there's a river and a creek, what I was doing, it wasn't wrong, and I still do it. I love coaching. I coach. I'm training less, but I still like speaking. But it was next to the river, right? So the creek's fine, but it feels the level of constraint. And then since I've been in this room and with Danielle and Grayson and playing with this, and it really is playing, I feel like I'm in the river. Oh. And it's so it's so satisfying.
So cool.
It's so cool, man.
Well, that's why I said it, because I was just listening to you and I was just like, you are just gold, like not only really valuable, thoughtful, research and insight.
Yeah.
But it's not what you do, it's how you do it.
Yeah, right.
So it's how you did that.
Yeah.
Which made me go, oh, literally, if you don't have a podcast, you need one.
Yeah.
Because it's how you do it. And I feel like that's what gives me confidence about the work we do at CGE as well, in that it's so in tune with my own personal style, which is, really vulnerable,
Yes.
open, keeping it real, breaking it down, not bamboozling people with acronyms, and and that's what people like. And then some people say, oh, like, you're dealing with CEOs, like, but
Yeah.
they're all just people.
They are just people.
So like, maybe in some of those initial meetings I was like, maybe like trying to be like, like a bit stiff or a bit proper, but now I'm like swearing, I'm like, and people are people.
They
and
are.
I feel like they actually like just having a normal conversation, and our approach where we do not have any judgment on this, and recognize that everyone's at different stages on the gender equity journey, personally and in their organizations. Like, that is our 100% of the time our lens is, we wrap our arms around people. Like, if you've got a true intent to change, doesn't matter if you're in a really shit position, because some people are like, oh, but that's like, we're and I'm
nowhere
like,
near it.
I'm like, is your intent true? Are you, look me in the eye, tell me you want to change. If I feel that, don't try and grapple with it yourself. Come and fast track your journey by learning from your peers in our community. So I think that
I'm totally sold. We're joining. There's me and Andy.
Great.
I think of myself as the boss. I don't know if he agrees. We feel like we're somewhere along the track. But as you said that just then, I felt it, because I've read about the organisation. I had a sense of what you're achieving there. But when you just said that, that's what people need to know. If you have the right intention, don't grapple with it on your own. Join us and we'll figure it out. And I can really feel the difference your organisation would make in that safety to be wherever they're at. It's what I do with coachees. I say, do you want to do this? Like, because, of course, coaching, you're put into an organisation to coach people. Coaching isn't about coaching people. It's about them wanting something. So all I need to know is, are they interested in doing that? And if they're not, I'll say, oh, no, we don't need to work together. They're like, oh, but I thought I meant to do it. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not wasting my time with you.
If your heart's not in it, like that's it. Like, is there true intent?
Yes.
You've got true intent, and if you're clumsy and if you've got zero, that's fine.
Yes.
If your intent to change is true, that's all we ask. And I would like to make a point of saying that it's not a free for all. If we do not feel that the intent is true, you don't get to join.
There you go.
We've rejected memberships in the past.
Yep.
And there's some being explored at the minute, which it's not a dead set yes.
So that raises something that I was thinking about. So these areas where we're looking at areas like gender equity, you end up with the risk of a tick box exercise.
Yes.
So there's no real love of gender equity. It's that, we're meant to have X amount. And then, of course, because it's a tick box and there's no real heart behind it, you get the resentment within the organisation.
Correct.
You'd see this all the time.
Correct.
So that sounds to me, when you say, look, you got the right intention, you're weeding out the BS, really,
100%.
right?
And you can tell by meeting. You can tell by meeting with someone if their intent is true.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of the vetting process that we go through, and it works. Like, what we have, our members who attend our summits, they're like, Ash, there is nothing else like this. Nothing else.
It's so cool.
And it's so magic. And I just adore. I just feel like I've got the best job in the world.
Yeah, and you do. But the job has the best person in it too, right? Like, it's really like, you've got a nice marriage now and you've got a nice marriage now, because both people in that situation, you're creating a whole world and you really want to be doing that. So it's beautiful. One of my clients in the past, lovely woman who I think you know, Caitlin Ustini from Digital Resources. I remember her saying that she'd started doing some work with you and the impact it was having. And it was wonderful to hear. When you were saying about, people getting started and being unsure, I think there is a real trick. I think that's what you did becoming the CEO. I think it's what I did starting this podcast. And Hugh Laurie, who I love, passionately at a wrong level for someone who's married to someone else. I think he actually would be quite like my husband in real life, which is a beautiful, creative pain in the ass, some sort of combo like that, but he's very lovely. He did that line about, I think it's a terrible thing to wait until you're ready. Yeah, I used it when I very first introed this idea, and I said it, I put it on LinkedIn. It's something like, I think it's a terrible thing to wait until you're ready. We're never truly ready. We just need to start the process.
Love it.
And I think for the people coming to talk to you at your organisation, or people like myself who are trying to live whatever that dream in their heart is, you actually have to start unready.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Otherwise you'd just be
what an
waiting.
idea. What an idea. No wonder people don't do it. Starting before you're ready and you want to look good to people and not get it wrong. And
Yeah, 100%.
do you know how many people, Ash, are trapped in a little tiny box and do not have your life or my life? My life, you're freer than me, but we're doing the same kind of stuff. That sense of I can just do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, and that's what I'm so passionate about, just trying to ignite, help ignite that in people, like that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's the little personal messages, maybe after I do a presentation or an employee of one of our members have rolled out this amazing program that, it's the little things which just fill my soul and just really make me so grateful to work in the social impact space. There's no better. It's a culmination of the little things which all add up, and it's just magic.
Yeah, it's really magic. And it is magic. And because you're creating what you're creating, it really will be able to, you will be able to bring people with you, because even you saying to me, don't put yourself down, Tamara, I'm not interested in hearing that. I was like, okay, I won't. So then if I imagine spending time with you in any context, I don't think, I'm going to be the worst version of me, I'm going to be the whingy version of me, I'm going to be whatever, the belittled version of me to myself. I'm like, oh, no, it's Ash. So I better think about how I can come at this from a positive point of view. That's pretty cool, right?
That's really cool.
That people who're going to hang out with you, they go, well, I better get my shit together. I don't have to be perfect, but I have to have a positive intention.
I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, you're not going to drag dead bodies along behind you. They have to be willing to.
But imagine if then we can create this ripple effect.
That's it.
So then if and I pick up little tidbits and nuggets of gold from a lot, and then I start building them into my conversations. And so if we just have this ripple effect, and something might resonate with some people and something else with some, but if we just keep spreading this kind of work of social impact and vulnerability and openness, imagine the positive change which can come from that. Like if you next time you're meeting with a client or with a friend and they do that classic female thing of putting ourselves down, nip it in the bud.
Yeah, right.
And spread the word, because by doing that, that's where we can get this kind of broader social, societal level change.
Yeah, because actually what you're doing in that is there's all these stories that are just made up. They're not real. So gender stuff is not real. Age stuff isn't real. Married or single isn't. No, it's all bullshit. It's all made up. And so when you are talking to a CEO, or I'm talking to someone here, or talking to myself, or whatever it might be, that story we're telling ourselves that limits us isn't real, right? So what you're saying to people is, here's a blank piece of paper. What do you want, and how can we help you do it? Because all of those restrictions that you think are there are not actually there.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's very much the lens of our work at CEOs for Gender Equity as well. It's don't fix the person, fix the system.
Yes.
So there are so many barriers to gender equity out there at the minute, and we focus on the workplace, but it flows into home life, and government's got a place to play and things like that. But there are so many systemic barriers out there which are inhibiting gender equity. So our lens is, what are the barriers, and let's remove them.
Right.
And that's what it's all about, because if a woman still wants to be a nurse, and if a man still wants to work in construction, that's fine.
Right.
But at the minute, there's too many barriers from both perspectives, which are stopping the freedom the real
Right.
raw freedom of those decisions.
Yes.
So when we're at a place where all of those barriers are gone, and if that person still wants to do that and that person still wants to, that's great. But we can be at peace that's, there's been no barriers in the way of that. And
yeah, because then the choice is a pure choice, right? And of course, there will be times when people want to do a more traditional role in one way or the other, but it's that they have the choice of each thing, and also that it's real. It's not lip service. It's not
Correct.
BS. It's not, oh, yes, we better have X, Y, Z because that's what we've been told. It's actually from a place of love and care. And actually, as you talk about that, when I think about how things work historically, you're really coming up against ancient barriers, really, like when you talk about gender.
they're built into the
Cellular
level of this country, But what I'm seeing is a real genuine appetite for change. Really,
That's very
and
exciting.
It's so exciting.
It's very
and let me
exciting.
tell you, the main barrier at the minute is a genuine lack of awareness as to what gender equity looks like, sounds like, some quick wins to get you started. That, honestly, that is what I see. That is the summation of all of my 2 years in this role. Is there is a really genuine lack of awareness.
Yeah.
Now, once we unlock that,
Yes.
which is what we do at CGA, and fast track the right tools and partnerships and conversations,
Yes.
then the magic happens.
Yes.
But they're just not aware of, you
No.
know. So as an example, like I had a conversation with a CEO of a mining company.
Yes.
And I noticed that they didn't have a family and domestic violence policy.
Right.
Because you can tell through looking on the Workplace Gender Equality Agency
Yes.
website. And so we're having a bit of a chat, and he was telling me everything that we're doing about gender equity, and it was some great stuff. And I said, right, that's really cool. Thank you. I noticed that you don't have a policy to support people experiencing family domestic violence. Like, what's the story? And he kind of like leaned across the desk, like in hushed tones, and said, well, Ash, if I roll out a FDV policy, does it not make it look like I've got an issue here? And I said, well, you do have an issue here, because 1 in 4 of the women and 1 in 13 of the men in your workplace have experienced family and domestic violence.
Yes.
So by you putting a policy to support these people in place really shows that next level of care,
Yes.
and all of the benefits that come with that. And he sat back and he went, I never thought about it like that.
No, I never thought about it like that.
Of course we should have a policy. Thank you. Right? And it's just a little reframe like that. That's just all it needed.
Yeah.
And so that on steroids is what I see. There is just like
Yeah.
a genuine lack of awareness. I feel like there's just been a lot of banging on about the problem
Yes.
about gender equity in
Yes.
the media, and some advocates are, kind
Yes.
of a bit man bashing, and I just do not subscribe to it. It's not helpful. It's not engaging.
No.
There's lots of gendered norms and burdens and stereotypes which men are carrying a heavy load with.
Yes.
Men's mental health, men's suicide rates,
Yes.
crisis point.
Right.
What are we doing there? As
Right.
well as women experiencing family domestic violence and sexual harassment and things. So
Right.
there's everyone's got issues, and it's actually all connected.
If you that approach is the most clever, because if one party is meant to be the enemy, how can anything shift?
Correct.
I always say, it's not my line actually, it's from years ago when I did Landmark, people can only be what you expect them to be. And so when you're talking to the CEO and he leans across the table and says, but I'm worried about, he only says that because the space you're creating for him is one of safety and that he can tell you whatever he needs.
Yeah.
If a CEO who's a man doesn't have enough women in the organisation and can say, look, I don't know how to resolve this, and you can say, you're creating a space, right? You're
Yeah.
creating an opportunity, and unlike many causes which do have, for whatever reason, a negative sense, there's nothing negative about it, right? It's openness and opportunity. So I get why people will be getting on board. So I half jokingly said, we're in, right? But what kind of size of organisation can use your services, and how do they use your services?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because we've got several one-person bands.
Hey.
So I guess the criteria is that you have to be a CEO or head of state
Yes.
to join, and you have to have a true intent. And you have to be on the, the bandwagon of fix the system, not the people.
Wow.
And we don't fix women or blame men. We just consider the holistic nature of gender equity. So if you kind of meet those criteria, which you definitely do,
Yes.
so we've got 1-person bands, we've got 4-person bands, we've got 10, 30, 100, thousands, right up to, Rob Scott at West Farmers with hundreds of thousands of people,
Yeah,
and
wow.
everything else in between. So yeah, there's been a real boost in, people don't realize that about 97% of businesses in Australia are small to medium sized.
Yeah, it's huge.
People don't realize it. So
Huge.
we've got several 1-person bands, never mind 2. And the thing is, it's the insights which you bring, and also a lot of our small organizations are in the consulting space.
Yes.
So we love it at CG because we're like, you come and learn and share and collaborate, and then you spread all the messages to your spheres of influence and help us get it out there even more.
Yeah, I think that's very clever, because I can think of clients that I've got that either won't know of you or won't have access to you, and there is an opportunity through the relationships I have internally to have conversations and access people that can have a think about this, right?
Yeah, great.
Particularly from the approach you take. So if I was to go on your website, I can go, do I go contact or do I go connect, or how does the process start?
Just go on the homepage. There's a little panel on the top right, and then I think contact or get in touch. I can't remember exactly what it says, but that'll just put in your name, a few details, or contact me on LinkedIn, Ash McGrath. Reach out or info@ceosforgenderequity.com.au, and we love to have a conversation with anyone who is just passionate about making progress. Doesn't matter what size you are, what industry you're in, how much of a hot mess you are. Doesn't matter. Come
about
and
gender
learn.
or in general?
General as well. We're a group of now about 90 Western Australian CEOs and heads of state.
Okay.
And it's all about learning, sharing and collaborating. So rather than these 90 companies going solo on this, imagine 90 heads getting around these, big kind of meaty issues. Like, it's just... I just love it.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So 3 times a year, all of our members come together for a CEO summit.
Yes.
Each one has a different theme around gender equity. So we've got one next week, which is on the gender pay gap. One of my favourite subjects.
Yes. Do you know, I didn't even know about it.
Do you know, before I joined this organisation, I thought the gender pay gap was like for like pay. Like, men and women getting paid differently for the same role.
That's what I thought it was too. That's what I think it is as we...
Okay. So
you were this age when you found out.
Ta-da. So the gender pay gap, that is a component of the gender pay gap. But like for like pay has actually been legislation in Australia since 1969.
Oh.
So it's actually illegal to pay someone of a different gender a different wage for the same role of the same, responsibilities.
That's why I thought it couldn't be a thing, because I thought, I don't actually think that happens, but it's clearly happening.
It still does. So they reckon it's like between like a 20 to 30% contributor to the gender pay gap.
Okay.
But it is illegal to do that.
Wow.
But it happens.
Okay.
It creeps in.
Okay.
But what the gender pay gap is the difference in average weekly earnings between men and women.
Because of what they're doing in their lives, how much they're working.
Correct.
Is it that?
Well, okay, this is like we could have a whole podcast on the gender pay gap.
We might have to have another one.
I'll give you like the micro version.
Okay.
So according to the Workplace Gender Equality Agency, the gender pay gap in Australia is about 21%. So the average man in Australia earns 21% more than the average woman. So it works out something like, is it an extra, 180 days or whatever it is a year that a woman has to work to earn the same as a man.
Okay.
Right? And it's due to all sorts of things, like different, mainly, here's a little nugget of information. The best way to address the gender pay gap is to get more women at the top. If you had gender balance in all levels in your organization, you won't have a gender pay gap.
Got it.
So the difference comes, if you cut it by company,
yes,
really talks to the different like where the genders sit, which typically men sit at the top
Yes.
and not at the bottom.
Yes.
And women sit at the bottom and not on the top.
Got it.
In a nutshell,
Yes.
that's what it's all about. But there's lots of other things that go into it. But my big passion is 22% is actually what they've done there to calculate that is they've annualized part-time roles. Right? Now about 60% of women work part-time.
Yes.
So the true gender pay gap is actually much worse.
Right.
Like goodness knows what it is. So in a nutshell, it's the difference in average weekly earnings between men and women.
So we do need to have another conversation because we need to talk about mothers going back to work, because that was something you and I spoke about when we met in person for the first time. And I think that's an area I'm particularly passionate about, because I think companies are very stupid. That's not polite.
Yes.
But they don't understand that if they let a woman come in after school drop off and leave before she needs to pick up the kids, they're going to get more from that woman than about 3 other people who work full time.
That's right.
And I do not understand why companies, and I'm not being as positive as you, Ash, I'm sorry, you can take what I'm saying and you would say it more positively, but I do not get why we can't have a situation where people understand they're going to pay these women less than they would a full-time person, and they're going to get go if they just look after them a little bit.
So exciting. It's so
There you go. See? Flip it around. Good job.
Is opportunity. And
Me too now.
And that was a
I haven't actually converted that quickly, but I am moving in your direction. I like this approach.
I appreciate the effort.
Thank you. I've got the right intention,
You do
right?
have the right
It is
intent.
exciting. Why is it exciting? It'll be a whole other conversation, but do you see things are starting to move in that area?
Yes. It's an untapped talent pool. It's something which we've clicked onto at CEOs for Gender Equity. We ran a pilot project a couple of months ago, a return to work program for parents. It's not just for women, it's for parents.
Parents, good one.
Because we're inclusive.
That's right.
And it was almost like a job fair, right? So we had 25 of our members have stalls at this job fair.
Wow.
And it was marketed through schools, through playgroups, through libraries, through cafes, supermarkets. We did paid social media advertising. We advertised in parents groups, like unreal.
Yep.
And we had like 170 different parents come through.
Oh, wow.
And it was just to kind of, draw them out. There are so many crazy, talented parents out there who are not engaged in the workforce.
Yes.
And it is mainly women, just that's the way it is at the minute, but that's something which we're working on changing it at CGE as well. But these people are incredibly talented, but for they don't know where to start. They've lost their confidence. Maybe they're dealing with kind of relationship and kind of family issues. For some reason or another, they're not in the workforce. But I know I can back it up with some data here. So in Western Australia, there's actually like 113,000 people late in the latent workforce.
Wow.
So they've got a Cert 3 and above.
Yes.
Many of them actually have a degree.
Yes.
113,000 people in Western Australia. And a lot of those, I imagine, would be return to work parents. So that's not even underemployed or unemployed. That is purely the latent workforce. People who are highly skilled, over 16, have qualifications, and are not working. Why is that?
Wow.
A lot of that is because they're parents.
Yes.
And they can't get childcare spaces. Childcare is too expensive. You name it. There's so many barriers. Anyway, this pilot program we had, the buzz of this place was unreal. We brought them together. They were having face-to-face conversations with representatives from the companies. We ran some masterclasses on the side about nailing the interview and pumping up your CV, and and the buzz was unreal. Let me tell you, who was there at that event? Geologists, data scientists, electrical engineers, magic people. Talent crisis? What talent crisis?
Yeah, no.
They're all here.
That's it.
They're just not being engaged.
Yeah.
So we did this kind of pilot program. We've learned a lot from it.
Yep.
And we're going to roll that out minimum twice a year moving forward. And we've also set up we're building a return to work parent database, which will form part of our member portal on our website, which has a bunch of different amazing resources on there. Like we've got a gender equity policy library with all the internal IP from our members. We've got a toolkit with over 50 different partner companies who offer amazing solutions to gender equity. So we're just all about the solutions. We don't want to hear it. We get the problem.
Yeah.
Solutions. Who's doing what?
That's right.
What's working? What's not working? How can we all leverage that?
Yeah.
To get a move on.
You can feel the mobility when you say that. The problem grinds you to a halt. The solution has you feel mobile. Like as you talk, I feel the difference between, there's an issue with this, stop, versus,
who wants to hear that?
Hang on. What can be done?
Yeah.
What can be done?
The solutions.
What haven't we talked about that you would like to talk about today? Have we talked enough, do you think, about CEOs for gender equity? Is there anything else that you thought you might like to share that we haven't?
I don't think so. I think I was really keen to promote PhDs because that was
real news to me. So if you've got an honours degree, you don't have to do your master's prior to your PhD, and your PhD is funded.
Correct.
Are you going to share the reality of what it is to do a PhD? Because I've heard it's a little bit tricky.
It is a bit tricky. So I started...
I don't want to be the storm cloud to your rainbow.
No.
My last couple of comments, I feel like I'm falling onto that side.
No,
but it gives
it's
you
fine.
the opportunity.
No, that's right. So I was a single mother.
Yes.
Whenever I started, I was working part-time. So I'm doing my PhD part-time.
Okay.
I would say practically, on average... It's about 8 hours a week.
Okay.
So what it looks like for me is maybe 2 nights a week I'll smash out 2 hours.
Yeah.
In the it'd be like 7 till 9, and I'll like have a cup of tea and glass of wine and a bit of a Netflix binge. And then on a Saturday and Sunday maybe a couple of hours. So on average, I would say it's about 8 hours a week practically, like the time it takes. And so I've been working on mine for 4 years.
Yes.
And I plan to lodge it at the end of the year. Now, with a PhD, you can part-time, you can take up to 8 years.
I was going to say, you're going fast.
Yeah, because I love it.
Okay.
When you do a PhD, you have to choose something you love.
True.
You have to love it. If you don't love it, don't even start, because it's something
I've learned about how you test if you love something. When I'm playing with this podcast, writing, thinking about it, I will stay up to whatever time at night and not be tired, right? And I wake up the next day and I'm not particularly tired, because there's a cliche meme that goes around that says, women, you're not tired. You don't need sleep. You need invigoration. You need inspiration. You need to be doing what your heart wants to do. And I know that feeling, the difference between, I've got to get this done. I actually messaged a fellow yesterday. I was working up on site, and I coach people, and it's a very, very different experience whether they're into it or not. So as I said earlier, if someone's actively not into the coaching, I won't coach them.
Yeah.
But some of them are very well intentioned, but they're not particularly thinking, or they're busy, they're tired, whatever's going on. Anyway, I had this fellow yesterday, late in the day. I was worn out from flying up and all the rest that it takes, and I was talking to him, and we finished the conversation. He went back to his life, and I went to the airport up there on site, and I was sitting there, I was saying, geez, I feel more energised than usual. And I had to message him, and I said, look, we were actually doing disc profiles, right? And his disc profile is that he's a more introverted kind of fellow. And I said, I've just done your disc profile with you, and the last thing I should be doing is interrupting your beer, right? Because you need to have time on your own to relax. But I've got to tell you, I noticed when we finished our conversation, I felt lighter and less tired than I had. And that's because of your genuine interest and care and input. As I spoke to him, he was thinking about what I was saying. He was thinking about what he could apply, and the difference he made to me from being him, right? And that's probably quite a good nutshell around what we're talking about, the opportunity for your business, right? The difference in what you can help people be and who you are for them allows all this opportunity. It's really inspiring. I love it.
Oh, bless
I love
you.
it.
Thank
and
you.
I think it is. I get why people challenge you. Could you really be that positive? But you can hear it. It is actually true for you. And it's not that you haven't dealt with anything, and it's not that you've never felt bad in your life, but actually you have a particular way that is naturally positive and forward moving, and thank God you do, because otherwise you wouldn't be doing what you're doing.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a blessing.
It is a
who
blessing.
you are.
Yeah,
you know?
I love it, and I'm just trying to spread the word, and all that good stuff.
And
so.
you are, and you're doing it beautifully. So the thing that I wanted to end with today, which I'll do very clunkily, but it will be with good intention. I was saying to Grayson before we started today, I was thinking about Northern Ireland, and I was thinking about the history of Northern Ireland and the cultures that will have lived there and how many centuries they would have lived there for. And when I visited Ireland or Scotland or these ancient cultures, ancient sort of Celtic cultures, I could really feel it in the air and the soil, this history of this culture. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because yesterday I was thinking about here, and I was thinking about acknowledgement of country or welcome to country. And I did the lightscape up at Kings Park, and they have some beautiful elements there with the different Noongar seasons and different comments. A lot of people who are from Australia have a very sort of combination of ignorant and difficult history with Aboriginal culture, Indigenous culture, and it's something that I pray continues to move in a more and more positive direction. But the thing I wanted to comment on is I wanted to do an acknowledgement of country today, not as a tick box exercise because I hate tick box exercises, but rather because what occurred to me yesterday is when I walk on the soil in Australia, I'm walking on soil that maybe 3 or 4 of generations of my family have walked on. And prior to that, this land was walked on by, for 60,000 years, walked on by the Indigenous people of this land. And actually, when I got in touch with that, I could actually feel, this will sound so strange to say as someone born here and someone who considers themselves Australian and is very grateful to be Australian. How lucky could I be? But I felt like I was on the land of others before me. It's only this tiny, like a millimetre is the bit I'm standing on, and the Indigenous culture is like this.
That's really cool.
And we wander around on this land, loving this land like we talked about earlier, but actually I was born here. I'm not a visitor to this land, but I'm a newcomer to this land, and my people are a newcomer to this land. And a lot of the beauty of this land and the energy of this land comes from a completely different, like we're talking about with gender, cellular place. It's different cells. So what I want to do is with as clunky but well-intentioned as I can is to acknowledge the country that we're doing this podcast on today, and what a joy it's been. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've absolutely loved talking to you.
Yeah.
I don't like when people fangirl on podcasts, so I had to say I loved it because it's true, but I don't want to be gushy because I don't know if you've heard that, but it's really gross. People are like, oh, well, you're the best. Anyway, edit that out, Grace. I didn't like that bit. But I want to acknowledge the land that we're on and the Noongar Nation, Budja Wudjak, and really say that I know where I am and I'm grateful for where I am, and I'm very grateful for the history of this land and the people who cared for it, quite frankly, far, far better than those of us who have arrived since. There's a plaque on Barrack Street and it's in the ground, and it says, "This spot marks as an acknowledgement of the start of Perth, the felling of a tree, an ancient gum." And I thought, doesn't that say a lot?
All right.
That we acknowledge we're here by felling an ancient gum. Well done.
Right.
Well done, us.
Yeah, we've got a ways to go there.
We really
don't
do.
we?
We're a bit confused, but we're trying, right?
We're trying.
We're really
Yeah.
trying. And
Yeah.
I so appreciate your time. I so appreciate what you're doing. I've got a far better understanding as to what CEOs for Gender Equity does and who you are. And I hope this gives an opportunity for people to take advantage of what you're offering. And well done, and congratulations on your great life.
Thank you so much.
Well done.